This is a stamp problem. It's similar to a coin problem in that we're talking about different denominations of stamps. So each stamp is worth something different depending on if it's a 3-cent stamp or a 29-cent stamp in this case. But the number of stamps we have is different than how much they are worth. So here's the problem. Jerry has some 3-cent stamps and 29-cent stamps worth $1.54. The number of 29-cent stamps is 4 less than 3 times the number of 3-cent stamps. How many 29-cent stamps does he have? Now, in this instance, it's true that we're only looking for how many 29-cent stamps he has, but if you look at the original problem, the second sentence here, the 29-cent stamps is 4 less than 3 times the number of 3-cent stamps. So as it turns out, we're going to have to define using variables both the 3-cent and the 29-cent stamps. So let's begin with a chart. So we're going to put the type of stamp. And we've got 3-cent stamps and 29-cent stamps. So we do know their unit value, and let's do everything in cents to avoid decimals. 3-cent stamps are worth 3 cents and 29-cent stamps are worth 29 cents each. And then we're going to put how many we have of each. I'll just put the number sign for that. And then we're going to have the last thing will be the value. Now, it doesn't tell us the total number of stamps. So usually I use the totals down here, but we're not going to be able to fill that number in for the totals because it doesn't tell us the total number of stamps. What it tells us is that the number of 29-cent stamps is 4 less than 3 times the number of 3-cent stamps. So I need to know how many 3-cent stamps there are, but I don't know that, so I need to use a variable. So for the number of 3-cent stamps, how about we say, well, we've got X. We don't know what it is, so let's just call it X. Any letter will do. How would I define the 29-cent stamps then? Well, it says the number of 29-cent stamps is 4 less than 3 times the number of 3-cent stamps. So 4 less means you've got to take away 4 from something. And you're going to take it away from what? 3 times the number of 3-cent stamps. Okay, see that? It's 4 less than 3 times the number of 3-cent stamps. Well, I know how many 3-cent stamps. It's X. So 3 times that will be 3X. So that's how we're going to define the number of 3-cent stamps and the number of 29-cent stamps. Now, the value we get, we take how much each stamp is worth times how many stamps we get to get the value. So the unit value times how many we have gives the total value over here. So the value for the 3-cent stamps is 3 times X, right? So we're going to write 3X. And for 29-cent stamps, the value would be 29 for each of these stamps. And there's 3X minus 4 of those total. So it's going to be 29 times 3X minus 4. And do we know the total value of all the stamps? Yes, it's up here, $1.54. So we did everything in cents though, so we have to write that as 154. So that's the total value of the stamps. So our equation comes from the total value of the 3-cent stamps plus the total value of the 29-cent stamps equals the total value of all the coins, 154. And that's the equation we need to write. The number of 3-cent stamps, their value is 3X plus the value of the 29-cent stamps is 29 times 3X minus 4 equals the total value of all the stamps, which is 154. And so then this is the equation we're going to try to solve for X. All right, so let's go for it. On the left-hand side, we need to do the distributive property. 29 times 3X and 29 times 4. So 29 times 3, I think that's 87X. And 29 times 4, that's 116, equals 154. So on the left-hand side, I can combine the like terms, and I'm also go ahead and going to add 1/16 to both sides. So we have 90x equals, I think that's 270. Nice. When we divide by 90, we get x equals 3. Now remember, if you're talking about how many stamps you have, it can't come out to a fraction. If it comes out to a fraction, either you made a mistake or they gave you a bogus problem that there was no solution to. All right, they've got to come out to be an integer. You also can't have a negative number of stamps. All right, so if x is 3, x stands for the number of 3-cent stamps. So for the 3-cent stamps, I've got 3, right? 3 stamps. And the 29-cent stamps, right, what's the 29 cents? It's 3x minus 4. So if x is 3, right, I'm going to have 3 times 3 minus 4. So that's going to be 5 stamps. All right. Remember, the question was how many 29-cent stamps. But before we write that answer, we want to make sure that if we had 3 3-cent stamps and 5 29-cent stamps, is it really worth $1.54? Because that was the original problem. So here was the original problem. He had some 3-cent stamps and 29-cent stamps, and their total worth should be $1.54. And we came up with, got 3 3-cent stamps. So for the 3-cent stamps, 3 times 3, that would be 9 cents, right? That's how much the 3-cent stamps was worth. And then 5 29-cent stamps, you have to do 5 times 29, which is $1.45. And then we just go ahead and add that up, and we get $1.54, which is what it was supposed to add up to. Yes, so that's correct. So now let's answer the right question. How many 29-cent stamps does he have? All right, so we're ready. Jerry has 5 29-cent stamps. See if you could do this all on your own from start to finish, and if you have trouble with it, just watch the video again.